Hello, seniors and families. Thank you so much for taking the time to view our Continuing the College Conversation recording. Given that it's a busy time of year, we know that your schedules are really busy, so we want you to be able to view this information on your own terms. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kelly Curtin. I'm one of the 3 college counselors here at DePaul Prep. We'll also be joined here later today with our Director of College Counseling, Tony Menestra. And unfortunately, our 3rd college counselor, Kate Koschel, will not be able to join us today since she is on a busload of other counselors from the Chicago-Land area heading down to the University of Iowa. But we look forward to seeing her when she gets back on Wednesday. Okay. So what we're going to be talking about today is really to provide you with an update on what you and your students should be thinking about now that those first applications have been submitted. We know that, you were working really hard during the past few weeks, have hopefully had a chance to breathe, and really want to help set you up for success for the next few months. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. We're just going to share a brief reminder of how you can reconnect with your college counselor. We're going to give you and your students some action items on what you should be doing with regards to your college applications, both the ones that you've already submitted, the ones that you're planning to submit, as well as getting ready for submitting financial aid information. We'll spend a few minutes talking about reevaluating your college list. And then finally, we will end with a college admissions panel featuring 2 amazing guests. And then this is kind of how the rest of the program will look out. Tony and I are going to provide you with some updates. We're going to review the semester and give you some action items. And then we'll turn it over to Betsy Stevens, who is the Assistant Director of Regional Recruitment for the University of Pittsburgh, who will discuss what happens after you hit the submit button on an application. She's going to talk about what happens from the college end of things. And then she'll turn it over to Myra Suerte, who is the Associate Director of Admissions for Chicago for St. Norbert College in Wisconsin. And she's going to talk to you a little bit about how you can engage with colleges, specifically your college admissions rep and the college itself. And then we'll end, we'll just give a few questions to our admissions reps about things that maybe have been on our students' minds during the past few weeks. Okay, so by the time you're reviewing this recording, the deadline for scheduling your parent-teacher conference has passed. So unfortunately, you can't schedule with us on Monday or on Tuesday. However, the good news is that we are available Monday through Friday during the school day for you to schedule a meeting with us. That can be in person or virtual. We know it's hard for many of you to come to campus out of your work schedules. So we really encourage you to, schedule some time with us to make sure that your student is staying on track for getting their applications in. And as they're getting financial aid award letters later in the spring to help you evaluate those. And we have our Calendly links that are posted here, but they're also on the DePaul Prep website. So we're happy to meet with you or your student at any time. Okay, so we're just going to provide a brief review of some highlights of what's been happening this semester. First of all, we began in August meeting with your students. I would say by the end of September, we had met with, I would say 90% of the senior class. And then by October, it was 100%. And some students we've met with multiple times. For me, this was one of the best parts of my job. The fact that I got to know your students as juniors and then meeting with them again and seeing how they're doing has just been fantastic. And we encourage them to reach out to either Kate, myself, or Tony if they have questions. During the past few weeks, we've done a lot of essay review, both personal essays and supplemental essays, whether that's been one-on-one with students. But we also, Tony, Kate, and I went into the English 4 class with Ms. Hogan and Ms. McLaughlin and answered questions and reviewed essays during that time as well. We also had dedicated time during senior advisory for college application work. Our students requested their letters of rec via Maya during one of our advisory lessons. And then they also had specific class time to work on their Common App and their essays. We also held a few events this semester. Our August college kickoff event that was really well attended at the beginning of the year. And then we also had a virtual event, Financing College. If you missed that, you can still view that recording on our website. And it's not too late to get educated about how you can finance your students' college experience. And then the other thing that we want to highlight is that this week we're wrapping up our college admissions rep visits. We had over 120 colleges visit campus. This year we moved our rep visits to take place during students' fresh period, so there wouldn't be any conflict with instructional time. And as a result, the number of students who attended these sessions just skyrocketed. We've had over 1,000 students visit these sessions throughout the past few months. Students have also been working hard on applying to scholarships. This year, we nominated 10 students for the Posse General Scholarship. We have one semifinalist, and he has moved on to being a finalist, and will have his final Posse interview later this month. Also new for this year, Posse has a new Posse Arts program where our students can interview with the North Carolina School of the Arts. And so we nominated 5 students, and 2 of those students are semifinalists, and we are still waiting to see kind of whether or not they move into the next round. We also have one student who is a QuestBridge National College Match finalist, where she will hear in December whether or not she is matched with one of her colleges. We have 2 GATE scholarship finalists, and we've had some students who, based on their performance on the SAT, we have 3 National Merit Committed students who performed well on the PSAT, and then we have 6 students who received the National Hispanic Recognition Award for their performance on the PSAT as well. And then finally, we have students who are part of Chicago Scholars, which is one of the premier college access programs here in Chicago. This year we have 9 scholars, which is awesome. And they participated in this great event called Onsite, which takes place every October at Navy Pier, where our students got to interview with college admissions reps. And they conducted over, between the 9 of them, over 50 admissions reps. And some of them even received admission letters of acceptance from schools like Michigan State or Valparaiso. So it was a really fun day. And we actually highlighted Chicago Scholars on our DePaul Prep Counseling Instagram feed, where last week we celebrated First Generation College Week. And so if you want to check that out, I definitely encourage you to go over to the Instagram feed for our counseling team. And next, I'm going to turn it over to Tony, who's going to talk about some very early numbers that we're seeing over here.
Sure, thanks. Okay, so in this current senior class, we're at around 235 students, somewhere in that range. So we processed about 2,600 early applications for this senior class, which ends up being about 11 per student. That number will likely even out. Some of those applications our students may not follow through on, but in the early going, it's looking pretty strong. The second number is what we really get jazzed about in our department. 337 different colleges and universities. Amongst that list, we're seeing a pretty wide variety from coast to coast and beyond the coast, a lot of international action. So that's sort of fun for our group because we get to engage with different college applications that we're not as familiar with. So our students are being pretty proactive and pretty creative with their lists. Our teachers are working really hard. This Wednesday, actually, we're going to be celebrating those teachers that wrote letters of rec, 325 of them in support of your seniors. So especially our junior facing teachers worked really hard to support all of the current seniors. For the most part, all of those letters of recommendation were loaded and processed by the end of September, which big congratulations to that group of teachers, and we're going to celebrate them soon. The last line, early decision applications. For those that aren't aware, early decision is a method by which students apply to a college, typically November 1, but they are essentially binding themselves to that school. They're saying, this is my number one school. If I'm admitted, you can count on my tuition deposit. So we had a significant number of students who are taking that chance. Those typically are exclusive to highly selective schools. So we are seeing a number of students with their target zone raised a little bit, and the early decision applications are encouraging. Okay, some early trends, some early numbers. Nothing really surprising here for our team. Over the last couple of years, we've definitely seen a strong interest in the large public schools, particularly in the Midwest. You'll see our top 4 schools are all Big Ten schools. That's very much the energy of our building. The vast majority of our schools are going to be very recognizable brand name schools. You'll see Marquette and DePaul kind of rounding out the top 10. You'll see Loyola as well, Chicago. Very Midwest, very sort of big school vibe, and that's kind of the energy in the building right now. Although this is the top 20, I mentioned there's 330 plus schools on the list. So we love the variety. But this gives you a good snapshot of kind of where our students' heads are right now. Back to Kelly.
Okay. So we're going to take a few minutes just to talk about, for the applications that your students have already submitted, what should they be doing with regards to those applications? I think the most important thing that they should be doing is read their emails. They're going to be getting a lot of emails from the schools where they've applied. That could include information about special scholarships apply to, honors colleges to apply to, opportunities for coming to campus and meeting current students. So please encourage your student to read their emails from the colleges where they've applied. I encourage you to create a Google folder for each college and just file it away. So that way it's really easy to take a look. In many of these emails, there's going to be login information for a college-specific admission portal. Each college pretty much has a specific portal or website where students can log in and check on the status of their application. One thing that they'll be able to see is whether or not they're missing any materials. Sometimes there's a little bit of a delay in whether or not a document has been processed. I know on the college counseling end, we've sent, almost every single transcript or letter of rec. You can check Maya to see whether those documents have been sent. You can also check the Common App to see whether the college has downloaded those documents. I would say by the end of the week, if a college is still saying that something is missing, reach out to us. We'll verify that the document has been sent. And then if it still says it's missing, then I encourage you to reach out to the admissions office directly to kind of figure out what exactly they're missing. Some schools, the other thing with regards to missing materials, one of the things that we're seeing are that more and more of our students are actually submitting test scores. They're deciding that they do want to send their SAT or their ACT score with a college. So some schools will allow a student just to self-report the score, but a lot of schools will require the student to send an official score report. Now, what that means is that if you're sending the SAT, your student will have to log into College Board and send the score report directly to that school. The same goes for the ACT. You'll have to log into ACT. If your student took it more than once and wants to super score, there's a button where you send super score, and you have to send it to the specific school. So if your student decided to share test scores, you should work with them on figuring out whether or not they need to send a score report. And typically the answer is going to be yes. The other thing that some schools are requiring, not all schools, is something called self-reported grades or self-reported academic report, the SRAR, where a student has to take their transcript and enter each course and grade into a specific website. For example, the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign has it directly on their My Illini website, whereas a school like Clemson or Penn State, you'll have to go to the SRAR site to fill that information out. So I strongly, encourage your student to make sure that they're just not missing anything with regards to keeping their application from being complete, and going into their school-specific admission portal is the best place to go. The other thing that we encourage you to do is last spring, we sent your student a college application organizer. And in that, there was a tab where you could track application materials as well as decisions to help your students stay organized on kind of the information that they're receiving. Definitely update their decision in that document. Let us know where they've been admitted or waitlisted or deferred or even denied. So we're aware of kind of how their list is shaping up. And then the other tab that we want you to pay really close attention to is the Merit Award tab, which is the 4th tab. Our administration last year tasked us with gathering the merit-based awards for each student from the colleges where they were accepted. And we're doing it again with this class. So if your student has already, gotten an acceptance, and in that acceptance, there was you've been awarded 10 grand per year, please go into the 4th tab of your tracker, indicate the name of the college, there's the name of award and the amount per year. We're also going to be resending that organizer this week. So that way it's at the top of your inbox. And so you can take another look at it if it's been buried in your email since the spring. The other thing that we encourage your student to do with regards to your current applications is continue researching that school, visit campus, connect with current students to learn what their experience is like. Because if your student is admitted to that school, they really need to begin thinking about, is this a place where I want to attend? And Myra's going to be talking a little bit more about this later on. And then also, if your student receives a decision from in December that they've been deferred or waitlist, really reading that email to figure out what's next. What's the process for that particular school? What sort of information that they need? I think one of the things that we are seeing is that there are more deferrals. So if a student has applied early action, the student might be deferred from early action to regular decision when they'll get their final admissions decision. So our main piece of advice is really to keep working hard this semester, because many schools will look at 7th semester grades to help kind of make that final decision. And so the college counseling team will send a mid-year transcript to each of your students' colleges in January, once fall grades have been finalized. So there's nothing that your student needs to do on their end. We'll take care of sending that transcript once it's finalized by our administration. Financial aid next steps. So for some of you, your student has applied to a college that will require the CSS profile, which is the online form that allows them to determine institutional aid. That document is open now. And what I would encourage you to do is to figure out, does your college require it? Typically, it's just very selective institutions and a few selective public schools like Michigan or the University of Virginia. So chances are that you will not have to complete this document. But if you have a question, you can always go to their website and their list of participating institutions to double check. If your school requires it, definitely take a look at the deadlines for our students who've applied early decision. Chances are you're going to have to complete the CSS profile by mid-November. Some schools for students who've applied early action, like the University of Denver, I believe they're requiring it in November. But most schools, if you're applying early action, you really won't need it until January or February. But please go to each site to figure out what is the exact deadline. We're still waiting to hear about the FAFSA. Supposedly it's going to be open in December, but we don't know exactly when. As soon as we get this information, we will tell you. But in the meantime, your student can create their FSA ID. We're actually having senior advisory on Thursday, where we're going to share with them how they can go about creating that. So hopefully they can, they'll be able to do that sooner than later. And then on your end, if you want to start gathering supporting documents, financial documents to help you complete the FAFSA, that way you're ready to go as soon as the FAFSA opens in December. Another thing that your student can be doing right now is applying to college-specific scholarships. So one of the things with access to a college portal, some schools have internal scholarship databases through Academic Works or Scholarship Universe. The University of Wisconsin has WISH, which is the Wisconsin Scholarship Hub, where you can actually log in and look for scholarships to apply to based on the criteria that fits to you. We actually have within our DePaul Prep Scholarship database, we have a tab that lists different universities and direct links to their internal scholarship search engines. So I would encourage you to begin looking for scholarship opportunities. Ms. Koschel sends out a scholarship bulletin monthly, which highlights different scholarships that your student can potentially apply to. We also have our scholarship database on our DePaul Prep website, where you can kind of see upcoming scholarship deadlines. Also on our college planning website are links to the CSS profile, links to the FAFSA. So please use our website as a resource to kind of help you with this process. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tony with next steps for new applications.
Okay. We're really proud of all the activity that our seniors put in for the November 1 deadlines and the October 15th deadlines, to be honest. A couple of schools a little bit earlier than November 1. But now's a good time to really kind of reassess where we are in the process. I mentioned there's an average of 10 or 11 applications per student, but that's okay, right? A lot of colleges are fielding increased application loads across the board. Now's a really good chance as a family and as a student to reassess what the early list looks like. Does it have all the pieces I'm looking for in my school? And can I look at another round? So there are a number of schools operating on November 15th and or December 1st, still early action or priority deadlines. So take a look at that. Our friends in California, who all operate on the same application, believe it or not, operate on an end of November deadline. And that's across the board from Berkeley down to UCLA and everything in between. Regular decision, schools that offer 2 lanes, right? The early or priority lane and then the regular decision lane. Typically those decision deadlines are around January 1st. Oftentimes they're a handful of days after the new year or in the middle of January. So taking a look at what options are out there for regular decision, oftentimes these application pools are much larger, but depending on the school, the level of selectivity in those pools can actually mirror the early pool. So take a look at those regular decision deadlines and work with your college counselor on, hey, should I add a couple of schools here? Is it worth putting an application in for RD at X school? And also look at the rolling admission deadlines. There are a vast majority of the schools out there that operate on what we call rolling admissions, right? There is no true hard set in stone deadline. Many of the smaller liberal arts schools, many of the regional schools will operate on rolling. Many of the less selected public schools are on rolling admissions. So really what we're doing here is we're applying. They're landing in whatever order they land in at the admissions office at those schools. And then those admission counselors and those teams are reviewing them in the order they arrive. So admission decisions will roll out as applications roll in. So still plenty of rolling applications out there. Being mindful of supplemental essay questions. So as our app numbers increase per student, what also increases potentially is the work they need to do to complete those applications. So it's not simply just adding a school or 5 to the Common Application. It's understanding that, particularly at more selective schools and larger public schools in general, are going to ask some form of the why us question, or ask students to expand on their major choice within a small essay format, or it could be another sort of fun supplemental question. Either way, the supplements have been far more a part of our seniors process than they have in the past. As test optional expands, as application boom expands, colleges are really looking for that fit in their application pool, and supplements are a great way to demonstrate fit. So when students submit their applications, sometimes in the Common App, the supplement is a part of their actual application. Other times, it's a secondary piece within the Common App where it's almost separate from the application underneath the application. So making sure your students are aware, have I completed my supplements? Where do I find the supplement? Is it in the Common App? Is it in their portal? And again, your college counselor can help with that, okay? Materials. So adding schools can be a plan moving forward, but are we adding schools that require more pieces that we didn't in the first pile, right? So if your student, let's say, applied to 8 schools in the first round, all of which required either none or 1 letter of recommendation, but they then apply to Syracuse for regular decision, Syracuse requires 2 letters of recommendation. And there's about 80 or 85 schools out there that do require 2 letters. So if your student does need a second letter of recommendation, I would definitely engage in that conversation sooner than later, not emailing a teacher randomly 2 days after New Year's, right? But to really look at that list and self-evaluate. Is your student applying to an honors college? I think we all in our team really love the idea of the best of both worlds. Students that apply, as you noticed from our application trends, to fairly large public state universities, but how do we make that experience more intimate? If your student is invited to apply to an honors program, we love that choice. It really can add a level of academic rigor, a level of intimacy, a level of community to a larger kind of big box experience, and really give those students something similar to what they felt here at DePaul, kind of that relationship-driven education. Many times honors colleges will be a separate additional application after or post-admit. Oftentimes students are invited to apply, and oftentimes there is another essay, and very likely there'll be another layer of letter of recommendation. This can vary from school to school. Oftentimes you can use the same letters of recommendation you use in the application process, but sometimes not. And sometimes you can use a version of an essay you've used for another college, sometimes not. So making sure you're looking at what the recommended pieces are to complete your honors application moving forward. Okay, and just a little emotional check-in. We talk a lot about logistics in our work, but a big part of the college admission process and college selection process is really in here. It's a gut check thing. It's an emotional value-driven choice. So a couple questions we're gonna ask our students every time we're checking in the post-November 1 process is, how do you feel about your list? Does your list have enough balance? Do you love your likely admit schools, right? There are certainly a high number of students who feel really good about their lists. Some took some reasonable reaches, which we always encourage. But is there enough balance on the back end as well, right? Do we really like all of those schools that we considered likely admit schools? If those end up being the only options or the most affordable options, are we in love with those places too? Every school, as we say, should be a dream school on your list. On the other end, have you stretched yourself enough, right? Regular decision pool is a good time after you've gotten past that big November 1 push to maybe reevaluate. Were you too modest in your early run? Do you want to take a shot at a couple of those more selective schools in the regular decision pool? Good question to ask. So I'd use the time between now and really Christmas break to kind of reevaluate where that list is, what that looks like, what those options are, and really start to distill down, what do I love on my list? Where's my head at right now? Where's my heart at? Having a real talk with the entire family about finances, I think, is necessary across the board, regardless of what your socioeconomic status is as a family or as a student. Identifying what the financial safety schools on the list are. A school that admission-wise may present a less selective path to get in may not offer any out-of-state money, right? So we need to think about where are our high-value, low-cost options on our list, understanding that many of our students are going to go on to graduate school. Many of our students are not done with college at 22. And thinking about what that ROI looks like. As a family, having real conversations about, is it worth it to go to an out-of-state public school in Colorado? Or am I looking at a more generous, smaller private school somewhere in the Midwest that doesn't cost me a flight and is going to offer significant scholarship? What does that look like for my family? What are your financial safety schools? Identifying that. And then thinking about what other expenses could be involved. As I mentioned, a flight, right? Flying to Seattle or flying to Boston, these can take a toll on a family if you're thinking about holidays and birthdays and getting back and forth. Understanding what it looks like to live off campus. If you're moving to an expensive city like New York or San Francisco, what does that look like your sophomore and junior year trying to get an apartment in those areas? Thinking about other expenses outside of what college looks like for your student is definitely something to think about. In the end, are you happy with your choices, right? I think a lot of students, we were all teenagers at one point. There's a lot of peer influence, right? And I understand that. We definitely get that in the early application push. But are your students making choices for themselves? Are they going to be happy for whatever reason it is? If you go back to their 7 Ps, right? What are the priorities? What are their value sets that they're looking for in their college process? Is it major, right? Is it school vibe? Is it athletics? Whatever those priorities were for your student, to check back in with those now. Now's a really good time to see the list, step back from it, look at it, and reevaluate, where are my priorities? Does my list reflect my values? And do I need to adjust moving forward? All right. So Kelly and I are going to step aside and allow the experts into the space here. We're both really excited to introduce both Betsy and Myra. I'll let the two of you introduce yourselves. Two, excellent admission professionals, great perspective. Our office leans a lot on our relationships with our admission sides colleagues. And we also pick up a ton when we invite them into our conversations too. So maybe Betsy first, then Myra second, just say hello, and then I'll get out of the way.
Hi, everybody. My name is Betsy Stevens. I'm an assistant director of regional recruitment at the University of Pittsburgh, and I live and work locally in the Chicagoland area.
Hi, everyone. My name is Myra Suerte. I'm an associate director of admissions and the Chicagoland regional representative for St. Omer College, located in De Pere, Wisconsin. I also live and work in the Chicagoland area, and I'm excited to be here today.
All right. So thank you again, Tony and Kelly, for letting us join you today. So I'm going to talk about what happens after a student hits that submit button. And I'm going to do my very best to be all encompassing and give a very general overview about what the review process is like, because this varies institution to institution. So just like the counseling staff here would say, I would encourage you to reach out to any of the universities or colleges that your student's applying to for clarity on their processes, because a lot of schools won't explicitly outline that on their website. So after an institution receives the application, we'll prepare the application for review. So this just means that we're going to make sure we have all of the materials we need to proceed with making a decision. And like the staff said here, if a student is missing something like a test score or a transcript or an essay, that institution will notify the student via email or via that college portal. So again, we can't stress enough, be sure to check emails and the portals regularly. As far as this review process goes, some institutions might have just one person reviewing the application. At a previous institution I worked at, this was the case. A lot of institutions, though, will have a multi-step or multi-person review process. This could be done, by an actual human reading the application, or it could be done using some sort of formula or software system. So again, as you can tell, I think the theme of this presentation and panel is that things vary place to place. I'm not going to get too in the weeds with anything, but I can tell you, for example, at Pitt, at least 2 admission counselors review every application. And if those 2 admission counselors make the same decision, that application moves forward with that decision. And if those 2 people disagree, then the decision goes to like a special circumstances committee. So a group of smaller people that ultimately review and make a final decision on that application. So as I kind of touched on, how is that application reviewed? So again, some schools have a very simple formula. For example, if a student has X GPA and X test score, or some requirements within some sort of grid, that application moves forward with that decision. Other schools might have some special formula, which might include test scores, a GPA, a recalculation of GPA by core classes. It might include the rigor of courses, some sort of evaluation on an essay or personal statement. And so again, there's a lot of variety here. Some of it could be just academic information. Some of it could be things outside of academics, which would be a holistic review process. So a holistic review could take into account things like a test score if a student chooses to submit that, a GPA, the rigor of the classes, so any of those honors, AP, dual enrollment courses. It could include an essay, demonstrated interest, so things like doing a physical on-campus visit, maybe attending some sort of event that the admissions office is hosting in your area, letters of recommendation, an interview. Again, there's probably things that I'm missing here, but you catch my drift. A holistic review takes into account multiple different things. And so with holistic review, what's important to one person in that application file might not be as important to another person reviewing that file. So it's nice to have some different perspectives in that application review. This will be a little refresh on what was touched on earlier as far as these common terms like early action and rolling admission. So again, with early action, there is an earlier deadline to apply. Like Tony said, this could be as early as October, or November 1st is a common deadline. And students will hear back earlier in the process. So apply early, hear back earlier. It's a non-binding decision. So many students who apply early action are demonstrating strong interest to that institution. And so they'll have answers in their hands earlier than a regular decision applicant and can proceed from there. With rolling admission, again, there's technically no deadline. So students could apply as early as August 1st when an application goes live, and some students might wait to apply much later in the process. I know at my institution, we do have students applying in early to mid-April, which is much later in the process. With rolling admissions, it's always a gamble as far as how competitive the applicant pool will be, how many students are applying, when are students applying. So Earlier is always better, but as a family and as a student, you have to prioritize which applications you want to submit and when. As you get into the winter months or the spring at a rolling admission school, things do tend to get more competitive because less seats are available. As was mentioned, rolling admission schools will typically have some deadlines, though they're not hard deadlines, but they're special deadlines for things like scholarships or an honors college. Lastly, I just wanted to touch on a couple of the different decisions a student could receive in the process. So first, the one we don't want to necessarily hear is a deny decision. So obviously this means you were not admitted. I like to frame it as a not now type of decision, meaning that perhaps in the future, the student will be a good fit as a transfer applicant to the institution. Again, the next decision might be a wait list, which is becoming much more common as applicant pools increase. And so typically I usually just say with a waitlist decision, the student definitely has the potential to be successful, but the institution needs to wait a little while to make a final decision. And mostly a student just has to be patient in the process. There's really nothing else you can really do to change the decision from a waitlist to an admit decision. But I do encourage students, if you are placed on a wait list, to maybe reach out to that admission counselor and institution just to let them know that you're still interested. Depending on the school, that could have some weight should a school decide to go to their wait list to admit students. The next decision would be a deferral. So this just means that the institution needs more information from the student before making a decision. Typically, especially at this time of year, this means that the institution would like to see your mid-year grades, or how did you do the fall semester of your senior year. And so that's why it's important to not let senioritis set in too early, because your grades could still influence your admission decision. Lastly, the best possible outcome in an admit decision. So you've been admitted to the university or college, and now you have options, and the decision is in your hands. So that's a little bit about what that post-submit process looks like, and I will turn it over to Myra.
Thanks, Betsy, and thank you, Kelly and Tony, again for inviting us to share a little bit about what it's like to engage with colleges after you've submitted your application. So students, it's important to interact with intention. You are in the process of deciding where you want to go into school, and it can be an overwhelming process. And there's a lot to take into consideration, but just know that we're here to support you every step of the way. And so the first recommendation is to visit campuses or participate in virtual visits. And so do your research, go on the website, see what's available, see if we offer visits during the week, see if we offer visits on the weekend, see what type of visits. Can you meet with a faculty member? Can you meet with a current student? Can you meet with a coach? There are all different types of visits that one can participate in. And so it's important for you to take advantage of these visits because it allows you to start to picture yourself there. It's important that whatever institution that you choose to go to, that you feel like you matter, that you feel like you are seen, and that there are activities and organizations that you can participate in. And of course, you're going there to get a great education. And so please also don't discredit the virtual visit. Do a virtual tour and do a campus visit in person if you're able to. Admitted student events. So hopefully you get a lot of acceptances in the mail. And so it's important for you to also take advantage of admitted student events. And so most institutions will offer some type of an admitted student day. And this is like an open house. Usually happens on the weekends, on a Saturday or Sunday, and it's a full day, large scale event for families and their students. So see what the community is like. You're going to interact with admissions staff. You're going to interact with current students, faculty, maybe even alumni. And so it's important for you to take advantage of these opportunities so that you can also interact with other students who are also considering the institution that you may be. Another type of an admitted student student event, it's actually can happen in your backyard. So oftentimes institutions host admitted student receptions. And so in the Chicagoland area, there may be admitted student receptions of the schools that you're considering at local restaurants or at a venue where there's an alumni connection. And so these receptions are truly for mingling. It's your opportunity, again, to ask your questions, interact with your admissions representative, connect with current students, and connect with alumni who are from the area who were in your shoes at one point. And so these are really good events that typically happen during weeknights during the week, or sometimes they do happen on the weekends. And so if you are curious to know if the schools that you're considering offer admitted student receptions in the Chicagoland area, reach out to your admissions counselor. Admission representatives will also host one-on-one appointments. They can happen in person at local coffee shops. They can happen virtually. This allows you to have a more personal meeting, a more personalized meeting where you can ask your questions that you may not necessarily want to ask in a larger group setting. These are really good opportunities to talk about finances, financial aid, the costs of attendance, what is all that going to look like? And so these are meetings that you can typically book online, or again, reach out to your admissions representative and see if there's a possibility to meet with them. Social media, take advantage of the different social media platforms out there. Maybe you're a big fan of TikTok, maybe you like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. These are really great avenues for you to get a glimpse of the community. Also another avenue to connect with us. It's also important to note that maybe once you've made your college decision, you may have an opportunity to join a specific group where you can potentially meet future roommates. And so this is typically happened through some form of social media channel. And so a great way to stay connected through that as well. And connect with current students. Check with admission offices, see if there's opportunities for you to shadow a current student. Maybe you want to sit in a class. Maybe you want to sit in a economics class. Maybe you're pursuing economics. I know I wasn't a math person or didn't like numbers, and economics would probably not be a good fit for me, but it's important for you to check out opportunities to shadow so that you can start to picture yourself there. If you are a student athlete that's being recruited, it's also a great opportunity for you to connect with coaches to see if you can attend practices where you can connect with potential future teammates and see if it's a really good fit. So you certainly want to connect with current students because I'm sure you're going to hear from admission representatives throughout your whole senior year, and you probably have connected with them even before your senior year. And so you want to get different perspectives, and one of those perspectives is connecting with current students. Your admissions portal. This is another way to engage with colleges. So I know that the admissions portal was mentioned earlier, but not only is your admissions portal going to be the place where you're going to see the status of your application file. So again, if you're missing a transcript, if you're missing a letter of recommendation, it's also going to be the place where it's going to house your admission decision. Like, have you been accepted? Have you been denied? Have you been deferred? Have you been waitlisted? All of that's going to be housed in your admissions portal. So my tip of advice, students and families, is to make sure you write down all those passwords and all those usernames, because you're going to get an admissions portal for every school that you've applied to. And it's also going to be the place where next steps are going to be. So what I mean by next steps is if you have made your college decision and you've submitted your deposit, your admissions portal can also be the place where your next steps are going to be listed. So that includes signing up for housing, registering for orientation, submitting medical forms. We use the admissions portal to provide updates to students. Also in an admissions portal, I've noticed that some institutions now also only have their specific admitted student events in the admission portal. So that's the only way that you can register to attend an admitted student event. So they don't publicize it on the website so that everyone can see it. And so if you want to attend a specific admitted student event, that can also sometimes be only located in the admissions portal. So again, be proactive and log into those admissions portals. And if you happen to forget your password or username, contact your admission representative and we'll be happy to help you get logged back in. keep in touch. We're not scary people. You saw Betsy and I, we're pretty friendly people, bubbly people, and we want to be here to help you. We were once in your shoes, and so please ask all the questions because we want to make sure that you're not confused about anything. And so we want to make sure that your questions get addressed. And if you can't find the answer to your questions on the website, it's very likely that you need to contact us. And so if you don't know who your admission representative is, call the admission offices, let them know that you go to DePaul College Prep in Chicago, Illinois, who is your admission representative, and they can let you know who your admission representative is. Oftentimes, this information can also be found on the website. And last but not least, breathe, students. I know that this is an overwhelming process, but it's also a very rewarding process. It's so exciting. It's an exciting time. And so know that we're your advocates. We're here to help you navigate that college decision process, and just tell yourself that you got this. And so remember to take a deep breath anytime you are feeling overwhelmed. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Betsy and Myra. And just 2 points, Myra, that you made. One about, if you've been admitted and there's an admitted student event, I recommend, even if you visited campus as a prospective student, if it's a school that you're seriously considering, I recommend visiting again. Because I think when you visit once you're admitted, it becomes a little bit more real. You're like, okay, can I see myself here? Are these people going to be my friends? I think you just visit campus with a completely different perspective now that it's actually a realistic possibility. And 2, you mentioned about like writing down your username and password for your portals. Just another plug for this application organizer that we're resending. There is a tab where your student can write the name of the college, the username, the password. Take advantage of that. Tony, Kate, and I spend a lot of time in meetings with students, helping students reset passwords, trying to log in. So if you can kind of be proactive and keep track, it'll save a lot of time in the long run. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to pose like 1 or 2 questions to our guests, since we have them here with us. And so, one of the questions that I've been finding from students, some of our students don't know what they want to major in. And so, for our students who are undecided, how do you colleges view someone who lists undecided as their major?
I can go ahead and go first. So for when a student is undecided, it's totally okay. I actually like to use the term multi-interested. You may be interested in a lot of different things and still trying to figure out what you want to study, and that's okay. In terms of how we view an undecided student, so from a liberal arts perspective, we welcome it. You are more than welcome to kind of explore your interests. It's very typical that from a liberal arts perspective too, that you'll be required to participate in a core curriculum. And so these are your general education courses, and you're going to be taking these courses, you're going to be working with faculty and advisors. They're going to help you try to narrow down your interests and find something that you're passionate about. And so the beautiful thing about a liberal arts education and attending a liberal arts institution is that students don't have to declare their major until the end of their sophomore year. And so that's halfway through your college journey. And so we welcome it, and it's okay for you to be undecided, but vice versa. It's also okay if you know exactly what you want to do. But who knows, you might change your mind.
I was waiting for Myra, because we're a little bit on the flip side. So we don't expect all 17 and 18-year-olds to know what they want to study, but at an institution like Pitt, we actually require students to apply to what we call it's a first-year entry school. So that means we have liberal arts, business, engineering, computer science, nursing, public health. And so students do have to apply to a specific school. They can be undecided within the school, but let's say think you're going to be a biology major, and then you're thinking, pre-med, and then you get into your freshman year and you decide you want to be a nurse. that student might not necessarily be able to make that switch at a school like Pitt or go into engineering. We have direct entry only programs. And so that's when you can't really be undecided, as if there's some more competitive or direct entry level schools or programs that you're looking at.
Great, thank you. And, I want to be respectful of your time. And you've actually, throughout each of your sections of the presentation, kind of addressed some of the questions that I was going to pose, with regards to senior grades. Betsy, you emphasized that is important. Myra, you talked about the portal, call your admissions rep if you have trouble logging in. So I just wanted to end to give each of you an opportunity to share with students or families if there is one thing that you would like them to know about your respective school, what would it be? And Betsy, we can start with you.
I'll go at least a little more fun. I'm sure Myra will too, because she's a fun person. So as a non-alum, so I didn't graduate from Pitt. I think the thing that surprised me the most and that I like the most about Pitt is the immense amount of pride Pitt students have for the school and the city. I was amazed to see students only wearing Pitt gear and blue and gold on campus. And I thought that was incredible, because where I went to school, anything went, didn't matter if it was the rival school. So students just love the university so much. And that's probably my favorite thing about the institution.
And Betsy is right. I'm also going to share a fun fact. And my fun fact about St. Norbert College is our food is pretty incredible. I love to eat in our dining hall. So we are actually number 1 in the state of Wisconsin for our amazing food, and number 4 nationally. And so come check out our food if you're ever in the greater Green Bay area and you're looking for a place to eat. We will treat you to lunch. And so our dining hall has 8 different stations. It's also very friendly for our students who have any dietary restriction or food allergies. And in addition to our dining hall, we also have 3 restaurants on our campus, including our own sushi bar. And I just have to share, because it's November, we actually just hosted a Thanksgiving dinner for all of our students, and we had 1,000 pounds worth of turkey and over 150 pies to serve our student body, which is like amazes me. I'm kind of jealous that I wasn't there, but our food's pretty great.
Excellent. I was really fortunate. I had the opportunity to visit St. Norbert over the summer in June on the Bus of Fun, and just thought it was just a beautiful campus. If your student wants a supportive environment, where they have access to so many opportunities, you should definitely check out St. Norbert. And then I'm flying to the University of Pittsburgh on Thursday for a counselor visit, which I'm so excited, because I know like a lot of our students are interested in, medium to large school in an urban environment with a defined campus and school spirit. And so I really can't wait to check out Pitt in person, to experience it for myself. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Betsy and Myra, for joining us today. Tony, do you have anything else to add?
No, just enjoy the process. We're past that early push. Let your students breathe a little bit, enjoy Thanksgiving, but maybe take this advice to heart and reach out to some of those college admission reps. They're really amazing people, and Kelly and Kate and I rely on them quite a bit.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Thanks, Betsy. Thanks, Myra. And we'll be posting this on the DePaul Prep website. Bye.